Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events, and this is virtual day trip to wine country. Today's April 16th, 2020, and today we are visiting virtually the awesome Jamesport Vineyards, and where we're being hosted by the founder, co-founder, and winemaker, Ron Gerler Jr. And we're going to talk about the winery. We're going to learn something about it. But first, but not least, I want to get out of the way that anyone can check out Jamesport Vineyards at any time, not just through a video like this, by going to jamesportwines.com. Jamesportwines.com website has lots of information, but we're going to learn a little bit about the winery, the operation, the history, and we're going to taste a couple of wines today. So, Ron, welcome.
Thank you.
This is our first virtual day trip to wine country. Many people are familiar with our day trip to wine country tours, which happen when we're not on shutdown and in quarantine. But we're going to be doing a series of these and having fun with them. So to get started, tell us a little bit about Jamesport Vineyards. What was the origins, and what is Jamesport Vineyards all about today?
Well, thank you for having me, Sam, and it's a pleasure to be doing this. And it's always exciting to be doing some of these new things and getting some of that new technology out there and giving people the ability to see us, even though we're not open. So my mother and father, Ron and Anne-Marie Gerler, came out here, purchased Early Rising Farm in 1981 in Cutchogue, which is where all of our vineyards are located. We have about 45 acres of grapes there. They then, after started growing grapes, realized that we needed to start to have a place to make wine. And so that's where you are, in front of the winery there at Jamesport. And they purchased that in 1985. And that's where the beginnings of winemaking started.
And how many cases do you make a year? And I'm going to show the tank room to people. So this is a fully functioning and working winery.
We currently produce anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 cases a year, depending on the weather. We'll always talk about weather in our business because weather really dictates the vintage and how much tonnage actually will come in that particular year. Or so it's really what we're dealing with all the time, Mother Nature.
Gotcha. And how many acres do you grow grapes on?
We currently have about 45 acres. We have the capability of doing 60. We have just planted over 5 acres of new varietals. And so that until that comes online, that'll be, over the next several years, we'll start to have some of that fruit come in.
And now you and I are virtually in the barrel room.
See that?
Tell us a little bit about the process and what makes Jamesport Vineyards unique and special, and how you differentiate yourself from other wineries and vineyards on the North Fork, specifically with things like, are you growing other types of grapes than what are typical for the region, and what kinds of wines are you making?
Well, we make about 13 different products currently right now, some white and red blends, some of your varietals that you know, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, little Merlot, Cabernet Franc. We grow some other varieties like Albarino, Lagrein, which is a northern red Italian variety. So we're always experimenting with different varieties and to see how they play here on the North Fork. You know, we are a maritime climate, so we have the challenge of the weather always in our face. So we're always looking to make different styles of wine, but we believe in sustainability. Sustainability for us means profitability and how that impacts the vineyard and how that impacts the winery in the longer term.
Gotcha. And in normal times, and when you open back up to the public, I assume that one of the really special ways to experience the wines and Jamesport Vineyards in general is to visit the tasting room, which for our viewers, I'll show in the background here.
Yeah, no, the tasting room is obviously the one-on-one experience that we really look forward to. We actually like meeting the people and enjoy, talking about our product and who we are and what we do. We've been out here for 40 years now. So it's nice to have that interaction. Wine is a living beverage, and it needs people to interact with.
In terms of the experience, you've been doing Jamesport Vineyards was founded in 1985.
Yes.
So you've been around for 35 years at this point? Um, I always like to do a high-low. What was, and we'll start with the low. What was a moment, maybe it was funny, maybe it seemed tragic at the time, that was the low point? Was it a hurricane or some kind of natural disaster in the history of the vineyard and building what you guys planted grapes from nothing and have built a fantastic and award-winning winery and operation?
You know, hurricanes out. Excuse me, Sam, hold on for a second. Just hold on for a second. What, Eric? Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
But
I'll talk to you in the morning. Bye. Sorry.
For everybody listening, you know, at a winery, you got people working all the time. It's a 24/7 operation. I think that was one of the vineyard workers.
Yes, Eric, my vineyard worker, yes.
It can't grow grapes without a great vineyard team, and I know you have one. So getting back to that, so what was a low point? Maybe it was tragic at the time and now comical in the rearview mirror in the history of those 35 years of building this amazing place.
So when you start a business, it's always exciting, and hurricanes are tragic. We first started making wine in '85. It was Hurricane Gloria. It flattened the vineyard out here. And so it was obviously at that point, we realized that we were in the wine business, and do we want to continue at that moment? and when you have those difficult years, whether it's frost or winter damage or tropical storms that come through, those are the years you question, why am I doing it? And the hardest part about it is saying every year, okay, we're going to do this again. And we joke about that in the family, but that's really what it is that you have to make the decision that you're going to continue to do this on, regardless of what the weather was in the past, because the past is over, and now we have to focus on the future and that's, the vines never go to sleep. They're always growing at some mode. Even though they go dormant in the winter, they're always moving and growing.
And so for people who aren't familiar with farming and vineyards, that Mother Nature is your partner in the business.
Yes. And sometimes not a good partner.
Sometimes a good one, sometimes not so good. Actually, 2019 was a good year for growing grapes. Yeah.
Yes, one of the better ones.
And then what was the high moment? I mean, what makes it all worthwhile?
I think anytime you talk about high moments, you talk about, when you enter competitions, you build something, you're building a brand, and the excitement of people coming and being a part of what you do. But obviously when you enter wines on an international level and you win those awards, whether they're gold medals or, things of that nature, it's exciting to be competing with wines that are around the world, and yet you're beating them. And so that's always an exciting moment when you take those medals home.
So the next question is, because I know a little bit about the wines and the winery, and I've enjoyed them over the years, how do you keep the taste and the quality of the wines up, at what is a pretty high level, even when there's a tough vintage or a more difficult harvest? How do you keep that up?
No, that's a great question, because
year after year.
It's a very good question, because consistency is what builds a brand. If a brand is roller coastering up and down, obviously the inconsistency, people realize that and they don't come back. And in the early years, we had a little bit of that, going on. As we got older, we realized that in order to be a high quality region, we have to make sure that the vineyards are running at a high level, and that we have a high, the winemaking team are the right people that are involved. And we also have to be making sure that, from a sustainability standpoint, that we're putting the right inputs into the vineyard, because the wine is made in the vineyard. And so if you have the vineyards up and running the way you want them, and they're doing, what we're asking them, you tend to get high quality wine. The fruit will always make great wine. It's us that always want to mess around and make it something else.
Got it. Well, let's check out a couple of wines. Do you have the Saddleback on hand?
Absolutely do. You have the Saddleback sitting right in front of me.
Excellent. I'm going to pull it up on screen so everybody can see it behind me or next to me.
Yep. This is a Saddleback right here, which is a beautiful Chardonnay. For those who don't know, and Saddleback is a ridge, and so you can see the wavy lines on there, and it's a ridge in the vineyard, and it's like a saddle. And so the top ridge, we picked that top ridge, and that's a distinct little spot in the vineyard. And the fruit ripens more evenly across that ridge. It tends to be a little bit riper, a little more full body. And so we do 100% wild ferment and barrel aged, and absolutely no filtering on the wine. So it's got a little bit of a cloudiness to it, but it has this beautiful aroma from the barrel, like almost a little butterscotchy note. But it has this bright acidity, aromas of honeysuckle, a little mandarin orange on the nose. But what's really nice about this wine is that has indigenous yeast from the field that fermented to make the wine. And so that's something that a lot of us are starting to do a little bit more, is using those natural yeasts that are in the field. It gives you a much different complexity, a better mouthfeel.
That's awesome. Now I have some family members who are very partial to your East End blend. Could we talk a little bit about that? And I'll also put a picture of that up on the screen. And by the way, again, I know I mentioned at the beginning of our talk that people can learn about the wines, but also buy them at jamesportwines.com. But I'd love to talk a little bit about the blend. My wife is a huge fan, and it's a great drinking wine. It's a great wine for everyday meals. And it's really got a sophistication that one is not normally immediately aware of in a newer wine region like the North Fork of Long Island.
Well, the fun thing about blends and a lot of wines is that if you take 1 + 1, it's not going to equal 2. It's going to equal 3 or 4. And so because you're taking different varieties from the fields and different locations, and they have their own thing going on. And when you put them together, they really make this exciting, whether you get fruit, whether you get acidity, whether you get mouthfeel. And so the East End Field Blend White, it's got the Albarino, it's got Riesling, it's got Chardonnay, it's got Sauvignon Blanc in there. There's a lot of nice things going on in that wine. And it is, once again, a crowd pleaser. It's a nice summertime wine because of the bright acidity to it. And it is one of our more popular whites during the summertime for sure.
That's awesome. And then for anybody who's watching, you can see the East End Field Blend, which is a wonderful white wine on the screen next to me. Do you have a wine club, and can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, the wine club is a nice way of, if you're coming out to the vineyard, you obviously get the experience of being with us. But more importantly, when you're not here, we can ship you a 2-bottle pack out every month. It's about $65 a month, depending on what wines are being shipped in that. And it's a good way, once again, that if you can't get here, we can get the wine to you. Obviously, with what's happening in the Corona world now today, we get a lot of people having the wine shipped directly to their home. Because obviously we are closed at the moment, and hopefully we're going to reopen soon enough. But the wine club has become very popular because of that.
So you've seen an uptick in the wine club, and have you seen an uptick as well to some degree on the website?
Yeah, that's definitely, it's harder for people to travel out here, and obviously everybody's a little concerned about traveling right now. And so, we plan to be open as soon as we're allowed to be. And, it's once again, we can get our wines to you at any time within a day or two.
Well, one of the reasons we're doing these virtual day trips to wine country is that we're not doing the actual physical ones. So hopefully people will get the sense of having visited virtually through our talk today. And if you'll have us, we'd love to come back at a future date and do another virtual tour. Perhaps talk about some specific wines and maybe even take a trip out to the vineyard virtually.
Absolutely. I think that's the fun part about this, is that we're able to take people around and show them different spots that, they typically wouldn't get, especially if they're out in the vineyard. And, that would be great, especially because we're getting ready for bud break. Bud break is very close. We're within the next 1 week to 10 days with bud break. And that's a magical time because that's when it really begins again. The whole season starts over. So whatever's behind us is behind us. And now we're ready for the start of a brand new season fresh.
Well, what I'd love to do is do a live Zoom where we invite people from all of our fans of New York Wine Events to join us online for a video session like this, and we can take a trip virtually out to the vineyard, talk about a little bit about Bud Break, and talk to some people live and take some questions while we're live.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to do that.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for making the time today. We will look forward to visiting again virtually, and we're hoping to be able to visit again in actuality and physically very, very soon.
Cheers.
All right, Ron. Cheers.
Yep.
Take care now.
Thank you.